It's Richard Miller here again, Facts for Working People. I want to say a few things, and one of the reasons I'm sort of making a video is, you see, I have this, so it's not easy for me to write. But anyway, I was reading the Wall Street Journal this morning, like I do, and there was a piece in there, for people, we all know that there's a shift in the people in control in this country, not the class that's in control, but the divisions within that class, different sectors of the class that struggle to govern every 4 years. We've got a more reckless gang in there than the last crowd, and he's been, well, I don't need to explain to you, it's in the news every day about who he's selecting to run for his cabinet. But I was reading about the guy he picked this morning, in the Wall Street Journal. His name is Tom Price. He's a Health and Human Services department. He's going to run the Health and Human Services. He's a representative in the House of Representatives, Republican rep. Over the last 4 years, he's traded $300,000 in shares over the past 4 years. 40 different pharmaceutical and biotech companies are those that he's traded in. He's actually a orthopedic surgeon. Medicine's a good business. Being a surgeon is a good business in this country, and public health is not so great. But if you got no money, but it's a good business to be a surgeon, and that's what he actually is. But I don't know if he has any time to do any surgeoning, because he's such a busy little bee on the stock market. But he sponsored over that time 35 different health bills. He's on various committees, so he has some clout there. Now he's been nominated for suggested by the Trump administration as the Health and Human Services. Human services, in their words, just like the Human Resources Department in a company. It's actually a way to best exploit human labor, not human resources, not how to help human resources so much. Well, he bought $50,000 and $100,000, I guess they're two separate sets of shares in August. That's just over 3 months ago, in an Australian company, Immunotherapeutics. That was in August 2016. This is just, I know we all know this in a certain way. I was feeling a little sorry for some of the folks that voted for Trump when I was reading this, because some people did in desperation that things might get better. And so he bought that. And of course you'll have hearings like they all do. They're like kangaroo courts at work. There'll be hearings where he'll go and sit in front of his friends and colleagues, and then they'll ask questions to go through this process of making sure he's a decent human being. And over the last period, the last 2 years, he's received $730,000 from the health industry. Over his last 6 terms, he's raised $15 million, $4.8 million of that from the health industry. He's got a colleague, a buddy, well, I don't know if he's technically a buddy, but certainly a buddy in arms, a political colleague. His name's Chris Collins, a rep from New York. He's the largest shareholder in Immunotherapeutics. 2 days before, Price bought his 2 shares. Collins bought 4 million shares for $500,000 and $1 million. So they both, around about the same time, 3.5 months ago, bought those shares. He owns 17% of this company, does Collins. Now, over the same period, there's a law just been passed. It's the 21st Century Cures Act. They got interesting names, these things. And incidentally, I think that Price might have been one of the authors of it. But there's thousands of, when you read the big business press, the serious business press, you just realize the hundreds of thousands of different forms of legislation that are passed that we know nothing about, working people know nothing about. You can't go to work and understand these things. That's why they employ people to take care of their interests. So this law was passed, the 21st Century Cures Act, and that law is to make it easier for for new drugs to get to market. It's like they do with cattle. The reason they raise cattle or anything, that they have to get something onto the market, because within a commodity is added value, it's surplus value they don't pay for, they don't realize it until they sell a commodity, whether it's a cow or a car or drugs. And so just like they fatten cattle up quicker, they give them drugs to fatten them up quicker and what have you, to get them into the marketplace, get their money back, plus the added value, go through the process again. It's the same with drugs. And so this law has been passed to help them get drugs into our market, onto the marketplace and into our bloodstreams quicker. It's called, as I say, the 21st Century Cures Act. And anyway, that has been passed, and both these guys voted for that. So Collins, he's talking about, because there's some question about his ethics, and they go through all this bull. He says, "I will put patients first," end quote. He will get cures, quote, quickly to those that need them most. What a good man he is. That's what's motivating, and that stock exchange stuff is just a little dabbling for him. So both of them, as I say, voted for this Cures Act that will get 21st Century Cures Act that will get allow them to get drugs into the hospitals and onto the market quicker. You should recall thalidomide when we think about stuff like that. Now, Price's investments in that 3 months, the prices of his investments have given him $500,000 to $1 million paper profit. They've increased in value. If he was to sell them today, he'd make $1.5 million over 3 months, or $500,000 to $1 million over 3 months. Price says about this stuff, he's going to be the head of Human Services Department. He says he's complying with all applicable laws and ethics and rules governing his personal finances. Collins also speaks on this question of ethics. He says there's no conflict of interest in what he's doing. It's simply, quote, an instant of bringing his business knowledge to Congress. That's exactly, of course, what Trump says is that's what's going to make him take care of me, because he's a good businessman. You've only got to see how he deals with his employees to see that's completely ridiculous. Collins goes on, quote, he's followed all ethical guidelines related to his personal finances. That's the boilerplate language that they give us. Feinstein, Pelosi, she's a multimillionaire. They say the same thing, that they're abiding by the law. They're acting within the framework of the law. And they are. At one point, the law was a black person wasn't a citizen. In the South, the law was a black person couldn't drink here, couldn't travel here, couldn't go there, couldn't do this, that, and the other. The cops enforced that law, and the state enforced that law. They were written, it was legislation. So they probably are not violating ethical laws, but they write the laws. The state is a capitalist state. There's no wage workers up there. There's no person that's an industrial worker or a white-collar worker, wage worker up there. So it's like I wrote about in a previous piece on the blog. It's a question of, we're never taught to think in the terms of systems. And so it's all about whether these people are individually ethical. But they write the laws. They write the laws in their interests. And it's very much different here. I remember growing up in England, though I wasn't very political at the time. When I talk to people, I say, well, my dad voted Tory or so-and-so voted Labour. It was the political party that you were aligned to, not some individual. And it's like people say, well, if we get another person with integrity, it's not about that. There's class interests here, and they represent class interests. And that's the issue. And they write the legislation. It's like I wrote about once time the BP spill there in that disaster that they're trying to, hopefully we'll forget. And that was under the Obama administration, and they handed over the writing of the regulations for deep sea drilling over to the energy industry. I mean, every worker knows that's a conflict of interest. So the business of Congress is business. The question is business our interest, the workers' interest, the wage workers' interest? We write about the team concept all the time on our blog, and it's not our interests. And like I say, I felt for a minute or two a little bit of sympathy with some of the guys that voted for Trump. I said yesterday about how I wrote yesterday how I'd listened to the radio, and there were two. I'm not talking about the fascists and the Nazis, but there were two small business people in Southern California connected to the agricultural industry, and they both voted for Trump because they believe that the agribusiness, the two parties, the big agribusiness, they represent big agribusiness, and they don't help the little guy. And hopefully Trump will change this. They don't make the connect, that party question again, or class question. Also workers, I know that voted, I've been following, that voted for Obama last time, hoped things would change, but they haven't. They're hoping this guy will change things. They're so tired of the status quo. Hillary is a warmonger. She is not, the Democratic Party is not a, there is personal demonization that plays a role, but in the main, the Americans, workers have just given up in a sense, and they think they're all rotten. So there's no real choice for workers. We have now a more reckless gang in control than the previously. But every 4 years, it's one section and one party of the bourgeois, of the capitalist class, that battles it out for who can govern society, plunder the economy, and plunder the rest of the world on behalf of their class. That's what we are faced with. Now, the thing is that what we should consider is that Trump is not popular. He's very unpopular. Firstly, in terms of the popular vote, Hillary Clinton won 3 million more votes than him. 80 or so million didn't vote at all. Those that are leaving aside the ideological racists and what have you, a lot of people just hope to hell something will change, and they're going to get savaged. They are going to get savaged. And for a minute I was thinking of them, some poor backward. Well, no, I don't want to use that word. There are some that just hope that something might. There are backward ones. Some of the guys I work with are backward ones. They got socialist jobs and they vote for a guy like Trump. It's unbelievable. They're gonna take. It's against their own class interest. But many of them have different reasons, guns included, and all of that silly stuff. But the thing is that there's going to be. They're going to get savaged. And I want to just finish with this: is that. You know, we've talked on the blog, first and foremost, the trade union leadership, not as individuals, as a whole, as a social force, are the reason for the rise of Trump. They've had opportunity after opportunity, particularly in the 80s, particularly then, to change the situation, to build a mass movement, to challenge capital, to build an independent political party. They've had opportunity to do that, and they won't. They're terrified of it. They're terrified of a victory because in the last analysis, they believe that capitalism is the only way society can be organized. What's the point of mobilizing the power of the workers? Where can that lead? It can only lead to chaos. They can't imagine workers leading, workers governing, or anything like that. They give the capitalist class rights that we're going to have to take away from them, just like the way America was formed as a modern nation state. Yeah, that's what has to happen. And so fundamentally, they're to blame for this, although hopefully there will be some major struggles in the coming period that will also cause some splits in the trade union movement. I'm not active in it anymore. But the other thing I wanted to finish with is that given the role they've played, and the savagery that's going to be wreaked on the American working class by this administration, a more blunt and open assault on the American working class, including those that mistakenly thought this man could actually help us, and this administration. This example here, the Health and Human Resources, everybody knows, when you read that, of course there's a conflict of interest. Because the trade union leadership, there's no other explanation, and I harp on them because I see the potential power and the resources they have at in their control. They are guilty. Because of that, people, you'll say to you, well, all politicians are bad. Politics is just bad, and all politicians are corrupt. And that's not the case. Politics is about life, and it affects everything that we do, where we live, where we eat, where kids go to school, and what have you. But because of this absence, the period ahead is going to be nasty. I look at it, and I was thinking about it this morning, about the potential for civil war. I mean, what Trump has done, he's allowed that element, and particularly in the South too, where the racist elements have never they've never accepted defeat. And they lost that war, but they've never accepted it. They've remained hidden to a certain extent, remained quiet to a certain extent. Trump has given them the green light. He's opened the door to this right-wing racist element in society. Some of them poverty-stricken, desperate whites, others not so. And there's this, they've sort of come out from under the woodwork, so to speak. But the main thing is that he's not as popular as it looks when you're overseas. There's a tremendous discontent here. There's going to be a movement against Trump here. My view is, and I believe history teaches us, that when the working class moves into struggle, and the working class will move into struggle to try to resolve the crisis, will try to change things, that when the working class does that, there's a tendency to overcome all of these social divisions, all of the detractions, the identity politics. Not that there's not issues within that are important, but all of the issues that detract us from the class question. There's a tendency when workers move into struggle to unite to seek class unity, and because of the absence of leadership that we've seen, that movement will be confused. There'll be periods of reaction. There'll be periods of great heroism and unity. That I do believe that, but it will be nasty. There's some 300 and something million guns in this country. Racism has a strong. You can't, as Lerone Bennett mentioned in his book, for 300 years convince white people certain things and convince black people certain things. You can't have 300 years of an ideology directed at white workers, like they've directed an ideology at Protestant workers in Northern Ireland, for example. You can't have that, not have a consciousness that's been affected by it. So, but the thing is that when the working class moves into struggle, it seeks unity along class lines, tends to overcome these divisions. But I think I cannot imagine they're not, and we cannot imagine there not being, and we've discussed this in our weekly conferences, some nastiness, some vicious, some violence in the streets in this country in the next period, in the period ahead. Plus, it's quite likely that before 2017, we're going to see the end of 2017 another slump or another serious recession. So those were some of the things I was thinking about this morning. That little example of these two politicians is the tip of the iceberg. We're governed by a gang of thieves, and things are not going to get better until the working class steps to the plate. And so the last thing I want to say is, we do have these conferences. We've got on the blog on the right-hand side, there's an email. If you want to contact us and you think you'd like to participate, those regular readers, and we have regular readers, about anywhere from 20 to 26,000 viewers a month, contact us and we'll see about that. They're getting to be quite interesting and exciting. They're not to join anything. It's about discussing the world around us. Where can we go from here? What can we learn from our mistakes? How can we learn from the past? We've joked about it being like a working class think tank to prepare ourselves for the period ahead. So this is Richard Miller. Also, we need some donations if you can help us. They don't have to be big donations. $5 a month would be great for us on that. There's a button up there on the right if you could help us out. So this is Richard Miller, Facts for Working People. I hope to get rid of this fairly soon. This is to strengthen it. I'm not giving you the nasty thingy. Like Seinfeld. So anyway, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you later.